get ready to jump into it, and we're gonna have a great day. What's good, everybody? It's your host, Mike, and you're locked into the regular Dallas Pod. This is our biggest show of the year. We're breaking down the entire NFL offseason, coaches hiring, assistant coaches hirings, free agency, the draft, and then we will close with the Super Bowl 60 game, which is the Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be great. I'm gonna get into it with this is the league wide reset episode. Let's start with championships that actually begin, and that's the coaches carousel. As y'all know, we had a lot of coaches that was being hired that has gotten hired today. Well, this week, last week, Buffalo, we had Joe Barry as the head coach, Pete Carmichael as the OC, and Jim Leonard as the DC. They kept the quarterback coach around, Ken Dorsey. So they Buffalo doubled down on offense. They was bringing their aggressive while tying their defense, which is what they needed to do because their defense last year was not good. Their defense couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't stop a cold. They basically couldn't do anything that needed to be done pertaining to trying to slow down anybody on the opposing offense. So that was one of the reasons why they made the changes that they made. Um, the Browns, you look at what the Browns have done. Tom Monkey, Patrick Graham, T. Martin, and they brought in Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach. This is the most serious Cleveland staff in years. I think what Cleveland is trying to do is basically say, hey, we got these young quarterbacks here. We're trying to build a contender, especially with the changes that happened in Baltimore, especially with the changes that happened in Pittsburgh. And the only team in that division that is still strong is Cincinnati. And I think with Cincinnati still being strong and Cincinnati still doing their thing, I think you're to me that division is wide open. I think that division is more wide open than any other division in the NFL. Um do is there a chance for these teams to, make something make something, good happen? Yeah, it is, but it's also you got to look at it as can Cleveland come out strong and what are they going to do with Deshaun Watson? And that's one of the questions that, we will see this off season and we will see what moves that they're going to make and what moves can actually be made. I kind of like, a lot of the stuff that a lot of these teams are doing out here that is basically saying where they're saying, hey, we're going to build a different philosophy. We're going to build a different kind of offense. We're going to build a different kind of defense. Buffalo is one of them where they put so much on Josh Allen with now, they have to change that. They have to change what they have done. They have to change what they're doing. They have to change this Josh Allen, this thing of what Josh Allen can handle, or it's supposed to be Superman and put his Superman cape on. That right there is not the recipe that you would want, or a recipe for good success. And I think with that being said, I think it's something where you don't you want to see Buffalo take it to that next level. And I think Buffalo can. Just like I think, you know, um everybody else can that could take it to that level that is supposed to, go there and, surprise a lot of us. I do think that Buffalo, if they do it right, they get the receivers that they need and they get the help in there that they need to get help, that Buffalo will be a contender again. I do believe that. I definitely believe that. I believe that the Browns is the same. If the Browns, you have to decide. I like the Browns hire because I think Todd Monken is going to bring stability back to that organization and back to that quarterback position with Deshaun Watson coming back. But a lot of people fail to realize is Deshaun Watson is has 2 years left on his contract, and I don't think the Browns are going to move on from that 2 years that's left. Now the other thing is, if you look at the many games that Deshaun Watson played, Deshaun Watson still got football life left in him because of the fact and age. They look at the age, but if you look at the fact of the years and the pounding, Deshaun Watson still got years left. He's still fresh. If he can stay injured free this year and play within the system, I think the Browns may be able to make some noise. Now, staying in that division, I'm gonna go with the Ravens. Jesse Mentor, Doyle, and Anthony Weaver. I think Doyle and Weaver was good hires. Baltimore didn't re-innovate it. They re they refined their coaching staff. So they added a defensive coordinator in Anthony Weaver that is going to put that defense in a situation to win games. He's going to put them in a situation to where they can close games out. He's going to put the players in a better situation where the players is going to be more concentrated on the leverage side of coverage, or the leverage side when they're on the line, or the linebackers. He's going to concentrate more on that to make them a way better defensive unit. I think their defense is going to step up. The offense with Doyle, we have to see if they're going to have that identity of that run first offense. We will see. I don't know how their offense is going to turn out under Doyle, but I do know Anthony Weaver will turn that defense around and make Baltimore that old Baltimore defense and make them that powerhouse defense that they once was. If you look at Hamilton, if you look at Wiggins, if you look at the guys that they have a good young nucleus and they have a good young core that can take them to that next level, that can close games out, that can win games for them, that can take them deeper into the playoffs. And I think that's something that they're looking at because they done been there, but now it's time to see if Baltimore can get over the top with Anthony Weaver as the DC. Doyle, I have to see, again, Doyle, the thing about bringing in Doyle is it's a fresh new idea, it's a fresh new offense, fresh new execution, fresh new terminology, fresh new verbiage, and everything that is going to be going on with that offense. Now the thing is, can they get the outside help that they need at receivers? Can they protect Lamar better? Even if Lamar, if are they going to stop running Lamar less? There's a whole lot of questions that needs to be answered when it comes to what the Ravens are doing and the changes that the Ravens are trying to see, or the changes that the Ravens are trying to get. or the understanding of what they're trying to do. Is their identity what it's always been, which is running the ball? Is their identity, which has always been, is putting the ball in Lamar's hands and having Lamar go ahead and try to win games and everything like that? Harbaugh is gone, so that staff is gone. So we just have to see how that is going to pan out with a different coaching staff. We have to see how that's going to pan out with a different system, different terminology, different everything. And I would definitely like to see, what they're going to do. Can they retake the North? Because again, you got Cincinnati coming back, and Cincinnati has a lot to prove. Because I think if Cincinnati doesn't take this division this year, I think Zach Taylor's gone. I really do. I think Zach Taylor is out of there because they didn't give him too many chances. You started off slow every year but last year, and you still didn't make it. Even though Joe Burrow was hurt, still the thing is, I think that is going to be looked at, and that is going to be looked at in the way of them saying, hey, let's see what you can do. And let's see, what moves can be made, because now the division belongs to Cincinnati now. That's their division. They should be able to take that division. But we'll see. Switching over to the NFC East. Well, no, I'm gonna stay in the North before I switch over to the NFC, and I'm gonna stay in the AFC until I switch. Um, I like what the Steelers did. I like the Steelers when they brought in Mike McCarthy. They brought in Brian. They brought in Brian to be their OC, and then Patrick Graham to be their DC. I think what this is going to do is bring stabilization back to the Steelers, but I also think it's going to have the Steelers playing a different style of ball. I think you're going to see, because Mike McCarthy does not, he likes to run the ball, but he also likes to pass the ball too. So it's going to be a different look. It's going to be a different play caller. Now the question is, who is their quarterback going to be? Will Howard needs to get a chance. And I think if they let Will Howard get that chance and they put Howard out there, I think Mike McCarthy might say, hey, I got something in this young man. You have to start now with Howard, get him that playbook, get him out there. So now, since you're in the off season, he can start working with his receivers. He can start working with his tight ends. He can start working with the running backs to get that camaraderie going and that chemistry going. Because I think Will Howard is that quarterback that can come in, and I think Will Howard is that quarterback that can come in and that can take Pittsburgh to that level that they was at when it was with Ben Roethlisberger. I think Pittsburgh, out of anybody in that division, has a chance to make more noise because of you have Mike McCarthy there who knows what he's doing. I think McCarthy doesn't have to, what's the word? I think McCarthy doesn't have to look over his shoulders like he did in Dallas, because he knows one mistake, Jerry's going to step in, Jerry's going to do this. The Rooneys aren't like that. So expect Mike McCarthy to be there, and expect Mike McCarthy to come in and make a difference to this Pittsburgh Steelers team. He's really gonna make a good difference to them, and probably make them better than what they are. I do want to get into. I do want to get in. Another thing is the defense. I think the defense is going to be something that needs to be watched too in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to make. I think Patrick Graham is going to make that defense better. And in order for Patrick Graham to make that defense better, I think Patrick Graham is going to be that guy that is going to, carry that defense and teach that defense how to be a much better defense all the way around. So I'm interested in seeing what the Steelers going to do. I'm interested in seeing what Mike McCarthy is going to do, and if he's going to make that right move and bring in Will Howard and let Will Howard start. Um, I want to move down to the Titans. They brought in Robert Saleh as their head coach. Robert Saleh brought in Brian Daboll and Gus Bradley. This move right here was a strong move, and I think it's a move of where Robert Saleh learned from New York, where I'm not going to be that defensive play caller. I'm going to let Gus Bradley comes in, run his defense, bring in his coaching staff, bring in everybody that makes sense to become that guy that can take this team to the next level. I think that defense will be better under Gus Bradley, and I think that they're going to be one of the ones that is going to make the defense that is going to make that defense a top five defense. If they get the right players, again, all of these teams that I'm talking about, they have to go into free agency and they have to go into the draft and get the players that they need and get the players that makes perfectly good sense. Brian Daboll coming in as an OC makes great sense because look what he did with Josh Allen. I think Brian Daboll teamed up with Cam Ward. He's going to make Cam Ward a good quarterback. Again, you got to get the right personnel around him. They lost Trey Burke. I think, and I'm glad Trey Burke is in Washington. Hopefully, Washington re-signs Trey Burke and keep Trey Burke. But they have to go into the free agency. They have to go into the draft, and they have to build around Cam Ward to make Cam Ward that guy. Going out west, the Raiders. I think the Raiders, what they're going to do and what they're waiting for, and if they making the move that I think that they're going to make with Clint Kubiak as a head coach and the OC, and then he brings Joe Burrow with him as the DC. I think all around that's going to make the Raiders a better, more competitive team, especially in that West. With Kansas City is going to come back. Kansas City brought back Eric Bieniemy, so that offense is going to run a lot better. They kept Spags there. Their defense is going to be better. It's just they need to bring in the right personnel on both sides of the ball to become a contender again in KC. Denver, I think Denver with Bo Nix coming back, I think Denver is definitely going to take it to that next level. Um, um, the Chargers, I think it's a lot with the Chargers that has to be sorted out before I can say the Chargers is going to take it to that next level. We just have to see. They have to see what they can do with Justin Herbert, what they're going to get out of Herbert and everything else. And I do think that the Chargers can do their thing, but it just depends. The Raiders has to. They have a running game. They got to get receivers. They got to get a quarterback. And I think if they go after Mendoza and they get Mendoza, or they trade for a quarterback, or they sign a quarterback in free agency, we just have to see, what the Raiders can do. I think with Clint Kubiak there and Clint Kubiak running that offense, it's going to be a different offense. It'll probably be a more running style offense and then pass. But I think with Clint Kubiak there with the Raiders, that makes a difference. And it'll help Mendoza. That's if they draft Mendoza. Now, the Raiders' issue is the defensive side of the ball. They're in outs with Matt Crosby. I don't think Crosby is going to come back. I think Crosby is going to hit free agency. And whichever team he goes to, he's going to dominate that team on that defense. I do think that the Raiders has to go into free agency and go into the draft, besides drafting the quarterback, draft at the right positions that they need. Receiver, secondary, linebackers. They just need to do a complete overhaul and just build around the young talent that's on that team. The Raiders do got some young talent, but they need to build around that talent. Now switching over to the NFC, especially the NFC East, And you look at what the Giants did. The Giants, they brought in Harbaugh and the DC Down Wilson. You know, I always said that the Giants was a head coach away or a coaching staff away from becoming that team, from becoming that team that will make, the Giants a competitive team. Head coach, yeah, he brought the stability, he brought the culture. The defensive coordinator, he's going to make that defense better. My question is, who they got as the offensive coordinator in a Matt Nagy? Let's go. Let's talk about Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy was the KC OC. He left KC, became the head coach of the Chicago Bears. He ran that offense, and that offense looked horrible when he ran that offense. They try to put everything on Justin Fields. It wasn't Justin Fields. They know it was Matt Nagy. Chicago fires Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy goes back to Kansas City, runs that Kansas City offense. Heck, Stevie Wonder could have ran that Kansas City offense with Patrick Mahomes there. And then a lot of people know that with that offense, Big Red, Andy Reid, the head coach, really is the man that runs that offense. And Matt Nagy just try to stabilize it. For 3 years straight, it didn't work. So they get rid of him and they go and they bring back Eric Bieniemy. Now, Harbaugh must see something in him that nobody else seen, because to me, you got Matt Nagy and you're bringing Matt Nagy in with Jackson Dart. I don't think that's a good look. I think he should have went and brought in another OC that to me is more proven and a more proven winner as an OC than Matt Nagy. We will see, but I don't think Matt Nagy is, that guy that you want to bring into a talented roster like what the Giants have on offense. The Giants got wide receivers. The Giants got a running game. The Giants got quarterback. The Giants got a good defense. So it's just how much are you going to rely on that defense when it comes to game time and and making the right calls for the defense to put the offense in prime position? Is he going to teach the receivers on how to use their leverage? Is he going to teach the quarterback, the running back, on how to hit that hole, hit that gap right? What's leverage to take to hit that gap? Same with your tight end. How your tight end is going to run his routes, when to cut the route off, when to keep the route going, when to, block, when not to block, when to rub, when to do all of that. And I don't think Matt Nagy is that kind of guy that can teach that team the leverage side of the ball, where use your leverage for this advantage, use your leverage for that advantage. Defense, yeah. Offense, no. Um, and then it's protecting Jackson Dart from himself. We all know Jackson Dart came in last year as a rookie. When he came in as a rookie, he had more concussions because he kept getting hit. He was always getting hit. So it's, can they keep Jackson Dart safe? Can they protect Jackson Dart? Can the line hold up? But also, can they do their job? Can they do what their assignments are and what they're supposed to do? We will see. They're in a tough division with the NFC East. You got the Cowboys, you got Washington, and you got the Eagles, and it's a tough division. But we will see. This is also, I want to see what Harbaugh is going to do, leaving the AFC and coming into the NFC, which is totally different. And then you're coming into one of the marquee divisions in all of football, which is the NFC East. The NFC East got more Super Bowls than any division in the NFL. So you're coming into something that you have to make that stand, that you got to be that rock, you got to be that standard, and I don't think their offense is going to be like that, especially in a market that you have to hold down. And I don't think that Matt Nagy as an OC can hold that down. We will see. Um, I was thinking they was going to go more with our old offensive coordinator and Cliff Kingsbury, and because to me that would have made more sense, especially with Jackson Dart. Now, getting on that Cliff Kingsbury, you look at what the Rams did. The Rams, they have Sean McVay as their head coach. They still got Mike LaFleur, who pulled his name out of considerations for all the head coaching positions that was available, which was smart, and Chris Shula as the DC. The surprising move to me was the person that they added as their senior offensive assistant, which was Cliff Kingsbury. You added Cliff Kingsbury to to an already potent Sean McVay offense with a Mike LaFleur, with Sean McVay minds. Then you throw that Cliff Kingsbury minds in. That's a that's IQ offense that is going to take the league probably by surprise. Now, my only question is, you have Matthew Stafford. What are you going to do, or are you going to make a move where you might go call Baltimore and say, "Give us Lamar, and we're going to give you all of these picks," or you might go and see who else is out there, because if you look at who's out there that can fit that offense, Kirk Cousins doesn't fit that offense. Or Marcus Mariota, yeah, he could fit that offense. Could Marcus Mariota fit it as a starter? Is the question. You know, you probably might get some good games out of Marcus Mariota, because we did here in Washington when he started, but you also got some bad games out of him too. So it's just the thing. He knows Cliff Kingsbury. He knows that Cliff Kingsbury offense, but now you're combining Cliff Kingsbury offense with Mike LaFleur and Sean McVay. So McVay has stacked his offense on the coaching side of things to make the offense much better than what the offense is going to be. I think the offense is going to be about 50 times better than what the offense is currently is. And again, like I said, it just depends on who they get at quarterback. You know, it all comes down to that. It all comes down to their quarterback. Stafford can't run that RPO like that. So we'll see. It's gonna be interesting. Now to my team, we still got Dan Quinn. I like the David Blau, keeping Blau and promoting Blau. He's not only going to still be he gets a chance to call his own offense, and I think that David Blau. So I'm gonna get into this, and it's going to be, it might be questioned, I don't know, but I'm gonna get into this, and I'm gonna get into it like this. The David Blau hiring was great because you keep Jaden with a coordinator that, or a guy that knows the offense. You're keeping him with his quarterback. Now he's going to put in his own offense. He's going to put his flavor to the offense. And that's something that I want to see. He has the weapons. In Washington, keep Trey Burke. In Washington, keep Debo. They got Terry coming back. You need to go out here and go get a tight end. Hint Isaiah Likely. Uh, your running game will be solid. You bring your whole offensive line back together where you got these guys that was trying to fill each other out last year that is now playing together. So that offensive line knows their job, knows what to do. But if you can go out there and you can get that number two receiver, and have Debo as the gadget, put him in the slot sometimes everything. And I think with a Traylon Burke, that Washington can do that with a Traylon Burke. If they want to go get Brandon Ayuk, go ahead. To me, I wouldn't, because of the baggage, but it just depends. Even if they bring in Brandon Ayuk, I would still keep Traylon Burke there, because Brandon Ayuk and Traylon Burke, they're different. They're different receivers. They're different styles, but I think they're dominant. Don't bring back Noah Brown. That's the thing that I don't want them to do. I don't want a Noah Brown coming back because he's injured. I think the offense for Washington is tight. Just like I said about New York's defense, the Giants' defense, it's tight because of who they added. Now, I think with the defense, I like Devontae Jones. You got a guy that can give you multiple looks on defense. He can give you that 4-3, or he can give you that 3-4. And I think if he gives you that 3-4 along with that 4-3 look, more of the 3-4 look, you're going to see a difference in a Newton. You're going to see a difference in Ken Law. You're going to see a difference with Payne out there. You're going to see that difference. You can be able to go get a Caleb Downs and drop him into the box. You're going to be able to go get another corner that that can be opposite side of Amos. You can put Mikey. Really, I will put Sanders still back outside and go and look at free agency for that slot corner. I think if they put Mikey to me plays better outside than he does inside. And I will put Mikey Sanders still back outside. You got Will Harris back there in the back. You put Will Harris with Caleb Downs, I think you're going to see something totally different. Don't get me wrong, Quan Martin. Yeah, I like Quan Martin, but Quan Martin can't do what Caleb Downs can do. Um, Frankie Louvu. I think they can get a lot out of Frankie Louvu under Jones. I think Frankie Louvu is going to be a different animal. I think if they bring in the right middle linebacker, um, or even stick with the middle linebackers that we have. I think McGee could be that middle linebacker that can communicate and get the guys in position and everything else with Jones, and he can show that heavy attack like Brian Flores did. When you learn from the different guys that he had learned from, that he has been under, and you see the success that all their defenses has, yeah, you can bring a multiple defense to Washington. And I think that's what they need is that multiple defensive look. And then not only that, but he also is under Quinn. So he can bring some of Quinn's stuff. He can add some of Quinn's stuff. He can add Flores stuff. He can add Lou Amarino stuff. He can add Zimmer stuff. He can add whoever else that he's been under or learned from. He can add all of that stuff, which will make a difference to what he wants to do. Okay? And it'll make a difference to this defense and make this defense better. He's a secondary coach. The main thing that we know that he is going to improve, which needs to be improved and should have been improved on this team a while back, is the secondary. And I think with him, make it a secondary better. Why is it going to be better? The thing is this, and this is the thing that trips me out, and I'm sure people may talk about it, they may not. But everybody say the pass rush is what causes, turnovers and everything like that. It's really not. If you don't have that pass rush, but you got your corners locked down, the pass rush is going to come. The sacks are going to come because if your receivers is locked down, guess what? The quarterback ain't going to have nowhere to throw, so he's going to either have to run or force the pass and get it turned over, get a pick. So it just depends. To me, that was the right move. That was a good pickup. That was something that to me I felt that was amazing and that was awesome, and I like seeing what they did on that side of the ball. Now I want to get into now. We're going to see because this is a totally defense reset, and they want to prove that hey, we're going to reset this, we're going to change this, we're going to make this better than what it currently is, and I kind of like it. It was a move that was made to make the defense better. And I think with Jaden there, you need to maximize as much as possible, with Jaden contract, but also these other players that you're going to bring in. Washington also needs to attack free agency hard. They need to go into free agency and spend money. They're going to have over $100 million of cap space if they do the right thing when they re-sign. If they re-sign Larry Tunsil, that is going to open up cap space. They decide on what they're going to do with Deron Payne. That's going to open up cap space. They let Lattimore go. that is going to open up cap space. So it just depends on how they're going to do everything that they're going to do. But they need to spend in free agency to get what they need on the defensive side of the ball. Okay. If you look on the offensive side of the ball, the main thing I hear people talk about is Washington needs a wide receiver. I think if the core would have stayed on the field together all year, they go into OTAs together. They bring Debo back, put Debo in the slot, bring Traylon Burke in, have Burke at that number 2 with Terry. I think you may see a wide receiving core that you may, okay, or they go in and get an Alex Pierce from Alex Pierce that was with the coach if the coach don't resign him. It all depends on what they're going to do. But to me, your offensive side of the ball is going to be shaped a certain way. But the defensive side of the ball is what's going to change everything. And I think with them bringing in Henderson, Eric Henderson is going to make a big difference on that defensive side of the ball on that line, because now he is going to turn that line into a dominant offensive line. I mean, defensive line. I'm sorry. He's going to make that defensive line a dominant defensive line. And I think with him making that defensive line a dominant defensive line, you're going to see a difference in that Washington defense, just like you're going to see a difference in the offense under Blau. But I think that defense is going to be the cream of the crop, and I think that defensive line with Henderson being there is what's going to make that difference when it comes to doing what we want Washington to do. I do think though that if they don't get it right, which I think they are, then people is going to talk. Teams is going to talk. A lot of questions is going to be asked about, did we make the right decision with the hiring of our GM? So we'll see. So I want to get out of that segment and I want to get into segment number 2, which is free agency. And we know free agency reshapes contenders. And I think and I'm just going to give y'all the top 20 names right now that are free agency. You look at George Pickens, who will make a huge difference to any team because he's a number 1. Even if you put him with your 1A, he's a 1B. Trey Hankerson. Trey, he's going to be dominant, but is he going to be as dominant as Max Crosby? Max Crosby is younger, but then you got to worry. Either way, you can't go wrong. I think wherever he goes, playing edge he's going to help any defense. Chris Jones. I think Chris Jones is going back to Kansas City. Chris Jones helps Kansas City. I think Chris Jones is definitely going to be in Kansas City, and they're not going to let him go nowhere. If they do, it shows me Kansas City is really going to start their rebuilding sooner than later. Jair Alexander, I'm just I'm not even talking about that one. He's just out there. That's like Lattimore. He's just out there. T. Higgins. I would love T. Higgins to come here, just like Pickens. But I think he's going to stay in Cincinnati. I think with T. Higgins, you're getting a guy that can be dominant, especially if you got a number 1 that demands double team. I think T. Higgins is going to be that guy also that you can't sleep on. And if you do, going to be crazy because of the fact that T. Higgins will probably be, him and George Pickens will probably be the 2 most wide receivers in demand in this year's free agency. You look at Brian Burns. Brian Burns off the edge. Again, great edge rusher. Great guy to have. Do I think the Giants is going to let him go? No, I don't think the Giants is going to let him go. I think the Giants probably tag him at a high number. Certain teams may stay away. Certain teams may not. And I hope that certain teams don't. Brian Burns is a hell of an edge, you know. So, like I said, a lot of these teams, in order to get better, you got 20 guys that I'm getting ready to name that can make these teams better. Josh Jacobs. Do I think Josh Jacobs as running back for Green Bay? Do I think Josh Jacobs is going to leave Green Bay? No, I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to leave Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to tag him and keep him there, just the same with Saquon Barkley and Philly. Philly would be crazy if they let Barkley hit the open market. If they let Barkley hit the open market, then that means Philly is in the total reset. And I don't think Philly is in the total reset mode. I don't think Barkley is going anywhere. I think Barkley is going to get more money than what he's currently making. And, if Philly don't give it to him, somebody else will. But if Philly don't give it to him, then it speaks volumes about the organization and what Philly is really trying to do. Um, Number 9 is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a good bridge quarterback. So, you may want to take him to you may want to pick him up for a team that needs a good bridge quarterback. Do I see him going back to Minnesota? Yeah, I do. Why? Because one, he knows the offense. Two, he can help JJ McCarthy gets better. I think McCarthy needed to sit another year. And the reason why I say he needed to sit another year is his first year was his injury year. So he didn't get to learn anything. He was doing a bunch of rehabbing and everything else. So when you put somebody in OTAs and you give them the keys to the castle, you say, hey, we moved on from Sam Darnold, which to me was stupid. They shouldn't have moved on from Sam Darnold. Look at what Sam Darnold is doing now. I'll get into that later on in this show. But I'm looking at Kirk could come in and he could bridge JJ McCarthy. The reason why McCarthy wasn't good this year is technically this was his rookie year. This was a year he should have sat behind somebody and learned behind a good quality veteran instead of just throwing him out there. His whole year last year was rehab. He ain't get into the books until the offseason. And it takes that offseason or seeing what he can do and say, hey, this is what he can do. Let's go ahead and try to at least fit it in. But I think if they bring back Kirk Cousins, it'll be great because that's what they need to bridge that gap and bridge him into that quarterback role as being that number one quarterback. That's something that needs to be done. And I think them bringing back Kirk Cousins makes a lot of sense. Jalen Johnson is a good corner. At number 10, I think Jalen Johnson is somebody that a lot of teams could use, especially if they got a good number 1. He could be their number 2, or you could bring him in and see if or he can fit in the slot. It just depends. But I do think Jalen Johnson playing that quarterback role, that corner, and a team that might need a corner like Washington, or other team makes sense. Christian Watkins, a D tackle that can help a team stop the run up the middle. I think Christian Watkins, if you put him in that right fit, it makes sense. And he you could get him at a good price. Again, it just depends. It just depends on where he goes, where he lands, who needs D tackles, and everything else. I'm going to go, and then you look at Mike Evans. I think with Mike Evans being out there, but I think a lot of teams are going to look at Mike Evans' age. I think Mike Evans may wind up going back to Tampa. I don't see Mike Evans going anywhere else. I do think he's going to go back to Tampa. Another name, Danielle Hunter. If you look at Danielle Hunter, look what Hunter can do. I think Hunter is going to make an impact wherever he goes as well. Calvin Ridley is that good slot that you may need. It's Calvin Ridley. He's not dominant, but he can be that number 2 guy that can come in and that can stretch the defense and that can cause trouble for certain teams and certain defenders. Matabike is somebody I don't think Baltimore should let go. If Baltimore let Meta BK go, that means Baltimore is trying to, you know, um, go into free agency or go into the draft and build that area up in the trenches. I don't think they should do it because again, Meta BK is somebody that can help needs interior wise as well. Geno Smith, that's another bridge quarterback. He could be somebody I could see in Minnesota also that can help JJ McCarthy. So, because he has been a starter, I don't think he's going to be with the Raiders next year. No, I think he's done. I think when Pete Carroll left, that did it for him as well. Xavier McKinney, if a team is looking for a quality safety, McKinney is your could be your guy. Dalton Rising, I think Rising at guard again, offensive help. You got these teams out here that need a good veteran offensive guard or offensive lineman. That's your guy. Jordan Phillip at safety again, another safety that can come in. You know that could. It just depends on which you put him at, weak or strong. It just depends. But he's another one that can make sense. Tyron Smith. Everybody knows Tyron Smith from Dallas and what Smith can do. On that note, but I think George Pickens is going to reset the wide receiver market um, for a lot of the upcoming wide receivers that is going to be hitting the free agent market. Is Dallas going to be that team that is going to have him reset the market? I don't think so. I don't think Dallas is going to be that team that is going to have him reset that market, given the fact that Dallas don't like to reset the market themselves. So, and then you're not going to have him out there making more than what CD Lamb is making or anything else. So George Pickens hitting the free agency market, it's going to be a lot of money. And the thing is this, also, George Pickens, if you have a number one, I think he's going to make your number one a number two. So, when Pickens hitting the market and going to these teams that need wide receivers, it's going to really make a difference. I can see him in Baltimore dominating with Zay Flowers in his original position, which is the slot. I can see him in Baltimore with Lamar dominating. I can see him going back to Pittsburgh. I can see him in Green Bay. I can see him in San Francisco. I can see him in different areas of with different teams. I can see him in Washington. I can see him in Philly. I can see him in New England. I can see him in Buffalo. It just makes sense to put him around. I can see him in Kansas City. It makes sense to put him in an area where I think he's going to make that difference. And you know, he's going to be one of the top ones out there that when the tampering period is open, a lot of teams are going to tamper and see what they can get out of him. Because I don't think Dallas is going to match any offer that he gets that's over $100,000. That's over 100 million or so. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Um, I do want to look at. I do want to basically say, where it's a market that is going to be an interesting free agent market. And it's going to be a market that everybody is going to want to look at and everybody is going to want to try to take advantage of. So we will see, and we will see how, the market pans out. We'll see. Um, I think the next one I want to get in, and you know, I think, like I said, with the safety market, that market, we just going to see. It's going to be interesting, and I want to see, how this all pans out and how and where he winds up. Um, I want to go into segment 3 And I think going into segment 3 is going to be an interesting segment. I'm not sure if I'm going to, what kind of what kind of impact that a lot of these players is going to make, given the fact that going into a draft that is a defensive heavy draft. Okay, that is something that we have to look at because this draft is a defensive heavy draft. This draft is going to be a draft that's going to make a lot of sense because it's defensive heavy. It's going to be a draft that is going to, you know, be one of them where it's is this person what we need? Is a Ruben Bain what we need? Is a Caleb Downs what we need? Is this guy what we need? Given the fact that you're going to have a lot of teams that is already a defensive team going into a weak offensive draft. So we'll see. You got teams like and I'm just going to start with the top 20 first round picks that I think is going to go in the first round. Where you got Caleb Down playing safety, you got Mendoza, you got Ruben Bain, you got Reese, you got Styles, you got Dunlin, you got Terrell. Okay, you got these young guys that can come in and can make a difference. I see Downs and Bain really making a difference. In this year's draft that's coming out, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You look at you look at the offense. You got what, one, two, three offensive tackles that's coming out. You got a running back that's coming out. You got one, two, three wide receivers, three wide receivers coming out in the Tate and a Boston and a Lemon. So we will see. We will see how this pans out. You got, and then how about Ty Simpson? You got Ty Simpson coming out. You got Howe at edge coming out. You got Sadiq coming out at tight end. You got Allen at linebacker. You got TJ Parker at edge. Like I said, this is a defensive heavy draft. And I think with this being a defensive heavy draft, I think with this being a defensive heavy draft, you're 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 going to look at a lot of teams that looking for offense. They may move back and say, "Hey, who do you have that you want to trade that's on the offensive side of the ball that can fit our needs, that can fit what we're looking for?" This is probably the first year that this is going to be one of the most defensive heavy drafts. This draft will produce more defensive starters than offensive ones, which is a fact. It's going to produce that. It's going to produce more defensive stars than offensive stars. And it's just what it is this year. And I think a lot of it is now you'll bring now the NFL wants to build that defense up. They want to take that defense to that level and then go from there. So we will see. We will see what happens. I want to get into the final segment, which is the Super Bowl. And you look at the Super Bowl, and you got two teams that fought all season to get where they needed to get to where they are now. You got the Seahawks versus the Patriots. You got so how did Seattle get here? Seattle got to the Super Bowl by they dominated the AFC West. They played physical defense and Sam Darnold's resurgence. Them three things is what helped get Seattle where Seattle is right now. Them three things is what got Seattle to the point of where Seattle saying, hey, we're making this Super Bowl run. And Sam Donald played better this year than he did last year. And I think the narrative of he can't win the big games, we will see because this is a big game. So we will see tomorrow at 6:30 on how all of this, pans out. I think the steps that Seattle made to get where Seattle had to get to made sense and it helped out a lot. Um Now, how did New England get here? New England defense led that playoff run. The clock control that they did helped make them get to where they are. I think the growth of Drake May helped a little bit, even though Drake May haven't had a good what do I want to say? That Drake May hasn't haven't had a good run in the playoffs. I think his run that he's doing in the playoffs is something totally different than what a lot of us expected. But I do think that run that he is making in this year's playoffs, I think is good. But he has to minimize a lot on the turnovers and not put everything on his back and not try to say, hey, I can make this happen. You got the help. You got Stephon Diggs. You got a good running game. You got offense. You got a defense. You got a coach in Mike Vrabel who's been there. You just play the game. You let the game come to you. As I tell, as I say, you let the game come to you. You don't go to the game, and that's the thing. And if he let that game comes to him, then I think New England has a chance to win. Um, and I think that Drake May can say, "Hey, I'm the first out of my class that not only went there, not only went into the playoffs, played slightly bad in the playoffs, but I was able to also turn everything around for my team." I think that helped him out a lot. Um, Now the quarterback matchup is going to be something that I'm going to watch because it's going to be experience versus the future. I think the experience might take over. Vegas, I think it's 4.5 is the spread. Um, Total mids in the 40s, and I think the slight edge goes to Seattle in the with the money line. Okay, the popular props. I'm giving y'all this now. Sam Donald touchdowns 1.5. I'm gonna go over with that. Drake May rush yards. I'm gonna go over with that. The first touchdown score, a running back or a tight end. I'm gonna, go with that, and then I'm gonna go with anytime touchdowns of Seahawks wide receiver. That's gonna be anytime touchdown. I'm gonna do that. Um, my bold takes is this game will be decided by one defensive turnover. Drake May needs to play well, but Donald needs to play cleaner. So does Drake May. And I think the under is live. I think it's going to go the over under. So, and it comes out to this. All right, my Super Bowl pick is I'm picking Seattle to win this game. Um, I'm not going to say they're going to win it by a landslide, but I do have them winning it. I have them winning it 27-20 on Seattle. I think Seattle is going to play a much better, crisper game. I think the experience of Sam Donald is going to kick in, but I also think Mike Vrabel and his experience is what's going to keep it close. But I do think one turnover is going to cost them, and that's what's going to cost them the game and everything else. But I think it should be a referee clean game. If the ref stays out of it and let them play, the game will be clean. I think that it's going to be a hard fought game. But at the end, I do think Seattle is going to win it, and I do think Seattle is going to um um be that team. And I think Seattle is going to prove why they've been like they've been all year long. So with that said, that's the NFL season in full. Subscribe, rate, share. This is Mike. This is the Regular Guys podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat. I want to thank all my fans, everybody else. But I do want to say this: the regular season doesn't, the off season doesn't stop here. You know, after the Super Bowl, we're still going to get into all season transactions. We're still going to be doing everything that we're doing now. This that we're doing on Sundays, we're going to just keep it going forward. We're going to keep this thing going. We're not going to stop. Yeah, we're going to talk basketball. We're going to talk, the Anthony Davis trade and a lot of the other trades and everything else. We're going to talk, baseball. We're going to get into baseball talk. We're going to get into a lot of other things pertaining to, this year and everything else pertaining to basketball, the rest of basketball, baseball, and everything else. Like I said, it's going to be interesting, but the off season here with the Regular Guys podcast, the off season don't stop. I want to thank y'all for listening. I want to thank y'all for supporting me this whole year, and I want to thank y'all for the continued support. Check us out for the post Super Bowl reaction next week and everything. I love y'all. Thanks to everybody that's been here. But like I said, the regular the football, just because it's the off season, it's not my off season. I'm gonna keep it going. The Regular Guys podcast is going to keep it going. I do want to say to my host, my co-host, out there, Carlos, happy birthday to you, buddy. I know that you enjoying your weekend. My birthday was last week. Happy birthday to me. I enjoyed my weekend. Will is out with my niece. He's with his daughter for her birthday. Happy birthday, niece. Enjoy your family. Enjoy this weekend. Stay warm. And again, enjoy the Super Bowl, man. Enjoy everything. Thank y'all for listening. I appreciate y'all. This is the Regular Guys podcast. Please subscribe. Hit that button. Listen. Love y'all. Out.